Let's try that. See if that streams a little better. Now we're streaming green and orange and yellow
and red.
and red.
Oh, stream.
I like it.
Is there a stream? Stream now?
There should be a stream. There is a stream. My goodness, it's a stream. And then I'm going to verify one thing, which is that this audio is coming from the board. So stand by me. Perfect. Okay, I'm gonna go get a beer.
Yeah,
Let me post this link.
Yeah, do that. Let the people watch us.
Oh, that's the other thing that's hard to always hard to figure out is what is also the link to live streaming.
I think that would be.
It's
right
this
there.
one. It's always this one hiding down there. There you go. I found it. All right.
Want a custom URL?
Mm-hmm.
Pay us money.
Let's see here. Hello, General. Mm-hmm.
Didn't wax my mustache out. Like
That's what the beer will help. The foam helps.
it'll renew what wax is on there for sure.
All right. Let's see. We got audio. Hello, audio.
Hello.
Hello, live streamers. Both of you.
You guys get a sneak peek.
All right. Let me fire up this guy. Excellent. Who's the third ghost person?
That's the echo. That is the room reverb.
the owl.
I was like, no,
There's the third person.
There's somebody else here.
Am I just gonna look like a huge douchebag if I wear my sunglasses? Because the sun is just nuking this room right now.
I'll allow it.
And see, the problem is that
I'm riding my hat pretty low where you can't even see.
anyone that tunes in beyond right now in this moment is just going to assume I'm a dickbag because there's no context for why I'm wearing shades. I can't do it.
No, you should do it. You can do it. I'll allow it.
I need a hat. I'll bring a hat next time.
Okay.
All right, Alan. Do a final level check.
Hey, Macarena.
That's pretty good.
Okay.
And here I am.
There you are.
Excellent. It keeps finding this person it's in the corner. We need a bass trap.
Yeah. No, I'm really kind of thinking maybe it is getting the reflection there somewhere.
Yep. All right. Cool. We're back for another episode. And it's just Alan and I this time.
It is, yep.
Just the two of us.
Yep.
Like that Will Smith song.
We couldn't con anyone else into saying things with us.
Nope, just us today. Blake's out doing the weather's too good, is what it is.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that Sloan's on a mountain bike right now.
Yeah,
because he brought it up to the office to gloat at us.
Yeah, and before he left, told me that's what he was going to go do. So
yeah. He sent me I'm out for the rest of the day on a bike right now, which is way better than deploying code. The right thing to be doing on a Friday, especially with good weather. But the downside is everybody's out having fun.
Yeah.
So just us today.
We'll talk shop.
I like it.
Yeah.
We could handle the pressure, I feel like.
Oh yeah.
I'm back, which is good.
Oh, you weren't here last week.
I was traveling home. I was on an airplane while you guys were recording. So
you didn't want to be that guy, huh?
No.
Remote in from the airplane.
From the airplane. God, wouldn't that be that would be next level
narcissism there. Yeah.
Well, I know just from knowing you and being around you, you haven't done a lot of air travel.
This is true.
I've done a lot.
Okay.
And there is, as you will find, there are some certain archetypes of people that are on every flight. And there's always a handful of people who are just on the phone, as they walk down the jet bridge, while they sit there and talk for the whole 20 minutes that you're doing the safety demonstration and pulling back until the moment that the flight attendant comes by and is like, "Sir, you're violating federal law," And then finally they turn their phone off. And then the second they touch down, as soon as the back wheels hit the runway, they're like, "Hey, no, I can talk." And just they're if you're one of those people, stop.
Yeah,
stop. Everyone else on the airplane.
It's not that urgent. Whatever it is.
I'm making money right now on this airplane.
It'll wait.
Say.
It's okay.
So what kind of next level douchery would it be for me to hop on the go in-flight Wi-Fi and be like, "Hey everybody, I'm on an airplane," and podcast from the plane? That'd be fun though.
That would be.
That'd be fun being that prick.
Yeah. If you totally planned to and had intention to, yeah. There's a bit on Letterkenny, I think 5th season, maybe, if that's a season, that they talk about that, where they bring up, I was in the bathroom the other day, and a guy had his phone up on the top of the urinal. What is so urgent?
That's a real thing, too.
Yeah.
I have seen that happen. No spoilers, by the way. I'm still, way back in season 3.
Yeah.
That's come up a couple times on the show, and I think it bears mentioning that is a favorite amongst around the office. And if you haven't seen Letterkenny, that is a really great. It's a Canadian comedy on Crave TV, I guess, is a Canadian channel, but it's on Hulu now. It wasn't for a while. We had to find it through I promise legal means every time we watched it before, but now it's on Hulu and we can all 5 seasons or 6 seasons, how many there are.
Yeah.
That's a great show. It is. I would describe it as some really bizarre intersection of Trailer Park Boys and Kevin Smith movie. Is that accurate?
Yeah. That kind of paints the picture.
The dialogue is very Kevin Smith.
Yeah, exactly. It feels, like monologue-ish.
Everyone
kinda.
speaks in monologues,
And especially like the first episode, right? Which Tyrell's the one that brought it to us, and so he showed us that episode, and immediately I was like, oh, it's like Clerks. It's a Canadian Clerks kind of, because they're around the food stand,
the produce stand.
yeah. Selling food on the roadside and just talking about life, choring and such.
It's a pretty good show, and I need to get more caught up on it. But there's been several references to it on the podcast, so it's about time that it got enough attention that it made it in the show notes.
Yeah,
so I'll be there. You should totally check it out.
We here at Friday Afternoon Deploy, we endorse Letterkenny.
That's right. Welcome to the Curator's Hour. Well, since we don't have a guest to come in today, and usually we kind of put the responsibility on our guests to pick a topic and say, like, what do you want to talk about?
That's what we do as good hosts.
Yeah, we talk a lot. So when a guest comes to sit in with us, we give them the choice of topics and what's interesting to them. And since we don't have one, we're also lazy hosts. We don't have one either.
Yeah.
But I do have. There's always stuff going on and always stuff that everyone's been looking into. So we're gonna talk a little bit about just the kind of the stuff that we've got going on and the things we've been looking at. New stuff in the tech world. There's no shortage of it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What have you been up to this week, Alan?
Well, I'm living e-commerce life, and so that's been kind of fun and interesting to go back and look at how that's evolved and changed just in the last 5 years.
Yeah, totally.
Quite a bit has changed there. Stripe, for instance, actually makes that really great too.
I am such a huge fan of Stripe, and I've used a lot of payment processors over the years, starting with old school, like direct with like PayPal's. PayPal had
gateway.
They had the payment gateway, and they had this IPN, instant payment notification. That was this thing where basically they didn't call it that at the time, but it was basically webhooks. So here's a form, a button on it, and put an action on the button. That's the URL. That's the webhook you want us to send a post request to when the payment is completed with some status information about it.
Gotcha.
So you just put this. You remember the little yellow button, like pay with PayPal or whatever. That's what that was, and it would take you to their site, and that would just be a little hidden field with where you wanted your callback to be, and that's where they would post back the information. It's called IPN, and then there was like Braintree became okay, now we have some proper integration tools and PCI compliant stuff where
that's a big deal.
Card numbers get turned into tokens and they can be reused and recurring payments. Braintree was pretty cool for a long time. And it's still out there doing its thing. Owned by PayPal now.
I don't remember the name of the old school Django. Maybe in Django. I know it's Python for sure, this e-commerce platform, but that made me think of it because the PCI compliance. No, it's a different one. I'm pretty sure.
Magento. Magento is PHP.
Yeah, no, this was definitely Python because I found it on Stack Overflow looking up some stuff, and somebody had pointed to this guy, and I went and looked, and it's officially archived in GitHub and everything. And I think I know why as soon as I was digging into the guts of it of like, oh, how do they do e-commerce,
Right.
Well, they were storing credit card
poorly.
information.
Yeah.
So, not going to do that.
I was going to suggest maybe it was Django Shop, but...
it may have been.
I'm looking at...
If that's archived, then that was probably it.
No, it's not. This is updated like a year ago.
Oh, okay.
For what reasons, I don't know, but there it is.
I haven't looked at that one yet.
It's definitely not a standard these days in Python and Django eCommerce.
Gotcha.
Oscar is a big popular one.
Yeah.
That's the one that's been around the longest, probably. It's the most enterprising. And then there's new players like Sailor, which is really cool.
Yeah, Sailor's looking good.
I like Sailor. I like the look of it a lot,
Yeah.
but it unfortunately is not well supported for multi-shop.
Yeah,
multi-tenant
multi-tenancy.
environments. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
one shop per domain. Well, I mean, you could set up multiple domains, but the idea of like having shared reporting databases across multiple stores, having users within just those stores, not a concept. And we're using Shoop on this one.
Yeah.
Not as impressed with Shoop though.
No, I mean, and what we're doing is pretty specialized. With some of the stuff that we're doing over API. It looks like it will be cool, but it's doing so much or trying to do so much.
It aspires to be cool.
It aspires to be cool, and so it's doing a lot of things kind of okay. But not one thing really great. Like I found the API, isn't quite there yet. So it definitely got us started, and we've bolted so much on top of it that we're practically using our own app now. It would be a matter of kind of going back and refactoring some data models in there to use our own and pull theirs out. So we're probably going to keep using it for a while anyway.
We're in
right.
there. It's one of those things that you get enough momentum. It's you can't change the tires on the car while it's going 70 miles an hour down the freeway.
Exactly, and especially when you're working with another team. We're working with a team out in California that's doing the front end work, and so if it was all internal, that could maybe be more feasible.
Right.
But you also got to get the other team on board, and they're going to be looking at us like, what? Why?
Well, I don't know that we've ever really talked about it, but something that is really interesting about that project is that the front end is very unique.
Yeah.
In that it is not a web front end. It's actually an iOS and mobile app game client.
Yeah.
Certainly, we're not the first people to do e-commerce backend for a mobile app, but most web development organizations and web developers working on e-commerce are doing it for a traditional web application.
Right. We're working with a Unity app.
Yeah.
Basically.
So that's different.
It is.
And pretty unique.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's been kind of fun to. It makes you kind of look at a little bit lower level than you probably would. I have screen shared and looked at some C# code to figure out how we need to serialize the data exactly, and all that. So yeah, that's been interesting.
I'm gonna pause to just complain about the low quality of our live stream. Look at that. That is crispy.
We are back in 2004.
Mm-hmm. So for those of you listening to the podcast, we do occasionally, not always, not consistently every time, live stream our recording of the show, and you can see our ugly faces. Hello, everyone.
We sound better than we look.
That's right, which is why the podcast is more popular than the live stream. But if you want to check it out, you can subscribe to us on YouTube. We're out there. Come find us. And hopefully the quality is better than it currently is the next time we do it, because it's pretty bad. But oh well. Yeah. So come find us and look at pixelated versions of our faces while we record the show.
And shake your fist at our ISP.
Yeah. Cox. Not getting a sponsorship from Cox.
No, that's just as well.
I'm fine with that. We have a great municipal fiber carrier here. We need to get on that here at the office. I think that'd be A+. This is the straw that broke the camel's back. It's not the client work. It's not the stuff that pays the bills. It's the live stream of the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool, man. That's such a unique project because of that, the front end side of it. And e-commerce is interesting and evolving a lot. So that's always neat. And there's a ton of tooling out there for it. Some of it's
a little newer, and but a lot of that stuff has been around for a long time. And,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of long running products in e-commerce, even though the landscape changes. The frameworks just continue to update and move over time, most of them at least.
Yeah, because the idea is the same, and that's how I've got some history in retail. I mean, and who doesn't in Arkansas, right?
Right.
But yeah, so it's just kind of taking those physical ideas and how do I make this digital and do it, not in person, basically. So that hasn't actually changed, that much. Still got a lot of the same old problems there.
Right. Yep. I haven't been doing e-commerce lately, but I did a lot in the past. I mean, it's it's one of the oldest. It's not the oldest thing on the internet, but like we started doing e-commerce pretty quickly. We kind of figured out like we did BBSs, and we had like, here's how we publish static information. All right, we kind of figured that out. Then we started figuring out communication.
Yeah.
Also through the BBSs, but then
Yep.
email and other things like that. And then there was like, well, what else do we do with it? And it was like, I guess we could buy shit.
Yeah.
And so e-commerce is pretty, I mean, compared to other services that you can do and other things, which is everything now is online, right? Obviously, but
Yeah.
e-commerce came along pretty quickly. So you have things like Magento, which people still use for God knows why. It was terrible when I used it over a decade ago.
We've been using it for years.
It was
though.
over a decade old when I used it a decade ago. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah,
We've been
yeah.
Magento was around in the mid '90s, and that's why it's still kind of around.
Wow, I didn't realize that long.
Yeah. Well, mid to late '90s,
Right,
somewhere around then, and
Yeah.
and so I used it pretty early in my career, and begrudgingly, but it's still out there. People are still there's a lot of e-commerce that runs on it, and I assume that it's kept up. I don't know if it's kept up, but I assume that it's been updated.
Yeah.
It's moving.
I imagine, yeah.
But
Still making money for people. out
it's
there.
it's interesting stuff, and that's why I think this project's cool because of the sort of headless nature of an e-commerce app to build it through APIs and things like that.
Yeah.
Totally different.
In the mundane, we find some way to make it like not so mundane.
That's right. So I've not been on that. I've been on this like totally other place.
Yeah, you have. Yeah, tell us about that.
And I've been going and look, just a bunch of different products and kind of piecemealing some stuff together. And we announced today actually our two new managed services that Lofty's offering. So we're our company is now offering managed services for customers who we've built applications for, as well as external customers for apps we didn't build, managed application performance and reliability services, as well as managed application security. So our team monitoring applications for their performance and uptime and performing incident response tasks in the event of an outage or bugs and those sort of things. And that's on the reliability side. And on the other side, on the security side, again, 24-hour monitoring and incident response to security events. And the way we're able to do that is through automation as much as possible. It's a human-powered system, obviously.
But automating the eyes.
That's right, automating the eyes so that human-powered system can be, that we're not staffing, teams of people in 3 shifts, day and night, but instead that, we can have on-call alerting systems, and in the event that, basically, how do we filter out noise, find a real incident, and then call people, right, to alert them to it. And it's been a lot of fun building out the systems for that. It's not a perfect system yet, but it was kind of amazing what we were able to put together with off-the-shelf, I guess, products, or mostly off-the-shelf products with just a little bit of glue in between them. So I've been looking at a whole bunch of different stuff. From APM tools to automated alerting, phone calling, things like that. We use PagerDuty for a long time here. A lot of people use PagerDuty.
Yeah.
Super popular. When I first started building it out, I used PagerDuty, and then I stumbled upon Opsgenie by Atlassian, which is pretty slick.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to end up going with it. I'm on a trial with it right now, but it's pretty handy.
Yeah, so far it looks good. Looks good to me. It's in that Atlassian ecosystem, but it doesn't look like a Jira app.
Well, I was going to say, it's in the ecosystem, but it's not built into Jira. So it's not like you don't randomly click a button and end up in some other fucking app going like, where am I? And all my navigation changed. There's no contextual navigation. It's self-contained, and every button you click on, for the most part, except for their Twitter feed, keeps you in the app. So that's nice. That's my one complaint about like Jira and stuff like that, is the great tools, but man, the navigation is awful.
Yeah, I mean, it all looks the same, and I guess that's the idea. But
yeah, I would just like when we're working around in Jira, and I click on something that opens in Confluence, just open a new tab with a different color scheme, so I know that I've left the application. Because that's the weird thing about Jira, and we are using Jira Service Desk for these products, so that's like just another type of Jira project that all the navigation changes when you're within that project. And we're using Confluence for documentation. But like, it's just really hard to tell where one of those products ends and the next begins. And then you have all kinds of configuration at the project level. And then you have configuration at the system level. And all you have to do is like click a tab right in front of you under the project to suddenly be in the system level documentation and like have left your project. The navigation's bad. But and tons of people use these products. Everyone knows the navigation's bad.
Yeah,
Opsgenie doesn't have that problem because it's all self-contained. But it's pretty cool. And if you haven't used tools like Opsgenie and PagerDuty, they're essentially event-based alerting systems that let you set up on-call rotation schedules and escalation policies. And configure when some sort of event happens. They ship with a lot of different integrations, whether it's like AWS CloudWatch, monitoring tools, or Pingdom to check if a site's online, like tons of stuff. It'll send off an event, and that event gets assigned to a team, and then within that team, you can have different policies about what do we do when the event's of this level, who do we call, or do we email first and then text and then call, and then if those people don't answer, who do we call next? And you set up all these policies, and you can make a really great incident response, like automation tool out of it. And so
is Opsgenie the one that has like the quote unquote war room?
Yeah,
in it?
That's on their enterprise plan. Opsgenie has basically like a hosted. So what they do is like you can set up in your incident response plan. You can set up. What do they call them? Conference bridges. So you can set up a bridge. And that could be like a physical bridge. Like the conference bridge for this incident is automatically this physical phone number and whatever telephony services you use at your organization. But you also have virtual ones. And the virtual ones are just like kind of your standard web conferencing. You've got screen sharing, video, and chat. What's cool about it, though, is it's associated with the incident. So when an incident goes off and your phone starts ringing, you can just jump right in and say, jump into the bridge, and everyone that's working on the incident, you get this virtual war room experience, which is cool for remote organizations, but also just in the middle of the night. Not that I really want my camera in my face in the middle of the night, but as far as like the voice conferencing part of it, to have that experience,
and it gives you a chat interface there too.
Yeah, and also in Opsgenie, a way to like notify stakeholders, and so you can actually send stuff out to your customers or your internal stakeholders if you're using it for internal projects, and so that's all really neat. So I've been messing with that and then like gluing systems together. It has integrations in some places that we needed, but in other places we needed to get alerts from systems that it didn't have integrations for. So I've been building like...
you built something in Chalice.
Yeah, I've stood up a Chalice project, which we've talked about in the past, but essentially it's like Flask. It's written in Python, open source by AWS, and it's kind of like the serverless framework. It just deploys serverless resources to AWS. So you build this Python web service, and it deploys Lambda functions for your business logic, and then it takes all your routing that you build. You just write it in the Python code. Yeah, just like you would in Flask. You decorate a function. Yeah. That function's the handler.
And you can run it locally, too.
You can run it locally just like you're used to, but then when you deploy it, the routing gets deployed to an API gateway in AWS, which routes requests to the appropriate Lambda function. And then from the API gateway, once it's in AWS, you can set up throttling and token-based authentication, all of that in this managed service. And so it's like instantly super scalable, very, very fast to deploy to production. Like, it takes like 2 minutes, and you have a web service that can handle millions of simultaneous requests as long as your wallet can support it.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty cool. I've been using that for glue between it. It's just a really cool way to get publicly accessible web services, and Jason Cannon's like out there and working on stuff.
Yeah, it's really great for just handling requests, and that's kind of the thing where I wouldn't really want to use Lambda on anything that's super processor intensive.
Yeah, and it gets expensive when you do that, right? Because it's basically anything that executes under 100 milliseconds falls into the cheap bucket.
Yep.
And as it starts going up, it gets more expensive. So, little API web requests like that, where the actual processing time in Lambda is like sub 10 milliseconds sometimes, or at least below 50, is like dirt cheap.
Yep.
Like even you get 1 million for free from AWS, and then when you cross that bucket, the next million's like 45 cents or something like that.
Yeah, I know it's like less than $1 for sure. So it's and that's the way I think it should be used like that, is when it doesn't really make sense to stand up a whole server to just glue something together like that. That's not going to be doing any kind of real processing. Just proxying the request pretty much.
And that's all. That's what I'm using it as, like as a dispatcher. So I'll have some monitoring tool, or maybe something on a system that we're monitoring, emit a single event to my web service, and then my web service functions as a dispatcher that simulcasts it out to all of the different interested parties. So it might send an event to Opsgenie to alert someone. It might send some diagnostic logging to Elasticsearch so that we can graph it in Kibana and have a dashboard that shows us that an event is happening, and also like a webhook to Slack to post a Slack notification and tag the on-call person or something like that. And so that's just a couple examples, but obviously the sky's the limit of how we can use it as a broadcast tool.
Yep. Limited by your imagination, largely, and your wallet. But,
yeah, exactly. Or as Hayden once put it, like, it can go bigger than your wallet.
Yes, it will expand beyond that.
But it's pretty cool because, with something like this, we're trying to minimize the impact of integrating it on the running service, right? Like, when you're building something for app performance to monitor it, the last thing you want to do is by monitoring the app performance, you degrade the app's performance.
Exactly.
And so we really want it to just be able to like blindly fire something out into a buffer that it doesn't have to wait to read to. Nothing that causes like an I/O blocking issue in the application. And if it needs to go to 10 different places and open database connections, we do that on the back end once the apps fire that information.
Like you said, that shouldn't be the app's concern.
Totally. I mean, from an architecture perspective, that minimizes the impact on the running application. So that's again, Opsgenie is something we're looking at. Also, just modern Elasticsearch and Elk Stack. Or Elastic Stack, as they call it now, because it's not just Elk anymore.
Right.
It used to be, it was Elasticsearch, and then we had Elasticsearch, Logstash, Kibana. Now there's Timelion and a whole bunch of other tools in that suite. But we're using APM, which is badass. It's application performance monitoring, like you would expect from New Relic or Rollbar, and it's totally open source, and it's badass.
Yeah, it's kind of neat to look at, like our Higher Lofty site. We were looking at it under that.
Yeah, the marketing site.
Yeah, and just to see the stats on requests and
I'm so proud of how well tuned that site. It's a Django Wagtail site, so it's not the fastest thing, and it's not like it's written in Golang or Java or something like that. However, it's not WordPress. And it's a CMS, so it's got to go to the database to look up basically everything every time it serves a request.
Yeah.
And half, like on an average transaction we were looking at yesterday, usually about half of the transaction being like a request coming into it, half of the time spent in a transaction is opening the connection to Postgres and RDS, which is like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
That's baller, because you can't optimize that. Like it's local traffic within AWS, and I guarantee they're doing it as fast as they possibly can. And then the other half is actually like rendering the page and like querying data.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Bragging rights.
We're pretty big fans of Wagtail.
Wagtail's sweet.
Yeah.
I'm building another one right now.
Another Wagtail?
Yeah, another Wagtail site for one of our clients.
Nice.
I jumped in to do they have a marketing site built in WordPress. And they were like, please get us off of WordPress. And I was like, what a noble cause.
Yeah.
I will dedicate marginal time in my nights and weekends to that cause.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm building another Wagtail site out right now and doing it. You know how it is like in software development. You repeat a lot of the same tasks. And when you do, you do it better the next time than you did it last time.
Absolutely.
Lessons learned, right?
Yeah.
And so now I'm building out this new CMS, and it's way better than ours. And now I'm tempted to go back and do a rebuild
Refactor ours, yeah.
not of any of the content, not of any of the
Right.
of nothing about the content layout or design of our current site. I love all that. I just want to go rebuild the guts underneath it because Wagtail stream fields are sweet. You've worked with Wagtail.
Yep.
But I don't know if you did any custom stuff with the stream fields.
I didn't, other than, I've looked at them and I've done a little bit just with toy projects with it. But yeah, nothing real extensive to really get to appreciate that.
Did you use stream fields though?
No, not for client work.
Okay, so the way they work, and for those for our listeners, it's stream fields. So we're talking about a Django application, but essentially it's a field on a model. In this case, it's a page in your CMS that lets you stack a stream of content, like blocks of content.
Yeah,
and
that's
under the hood, it stores it in like a JSON field. But what happens is each individual component of that stream has its own rendering instructions and templates for it. So you can basically say like some of the components it ships with for free, for example, would be just like a rich text block. So if you're building a page in a CMS and you're building a content type and you have like the body of the page that's has a WYSIWYG in it, paragraph, bulleted list, that sort of stuff. Basic CMS stuff. You can do that directly and just have a body field that's a WYSIWYG, or you can use a stream field and you can add a WYSIWYG to the body and then potentially add another type of content to it. And then you can go define a template for that type of content.
Wow.
So you build this stack and then it just really handily renders that template for you on the page and generates the HTML kind of dynamically. So it's very painless to use, but ultimately what you can do with that, which I didn't do on our site, but I'm doing on the new one, is actually build custom elements for the stream field that are designed components that fit the front end design of the site. So things like a hero image or a pull quote that's like a full width quote or something like that, that when you're editing it, so you can go build a page and say, like from scratch, like, okay, well, this is going to have a title at the top, and I might have multiple options for them. That's like, this is a, like a high impact graphic title, and then there's going to be a pull quote or a testimonial, and then there's going to be a 3-panel feature where you select, everyone has the 3 icons, which is 3 services or whatever, with icon select and text, and so you can build them out and make like super composable pages that someone doesn't have to be a developer to get in and edit. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's that makes me want to go back and
I went super
refactor some code too.
Our site's super basic. All the stream fields are like a WYSIWYG, Markdown, and raw HTML.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to do anything custom, I could, but I was just writing raw HTML into the CMS backend.
Yeah, the Markdown's pretty cool. Like for when we're writing a blog post and we want to do code snippets.
So I built that. That was
Yeah,
custom,
yeah.
right? We have a Markdown renderer that you write Markdown and it does it, but I integrated syntax highlighting into that. So that's actually all done in JavaScript in the template for that type of stream field element. It doesn't do that out of the box. So, but that's the kind of shit that you can do with it.
Right.
It's pretty cool.
Right. Yeah.
I will link to Wagtail and its awesome stream fields in the show notes.
Yep.
It is my favorite CMS. It's not really a CMS though.
Yeah, that's because
It's a CMS framework.
Yeah, because one of the things that I think is really cool about it is like, what if I already have a Django app, and then I or a client decides like, well, it'd be really cool if we throw if we have a CMS in there, and instead of having to maybe go and stand up a whole new project, you can actually bolt Wagtail
Right
into
onto
an
it.
existing project.
Because the central use case of a CMS and sort of a primary concern of any CMS is a dynamic routing system.
Yeah.
Like an end user, without deploying any code, needs to say, when you go to this URL, load this page.
Right.
Which means that there has to be logic in a CMS that looks at the request as it comes in and then goes to some data store, a database, and looks up what page is at that URL.
Right.
And because of that, every other CMS solution in Django totally hijacks Django's routing system.
Yeah.
So integrating it with an existing project is like go into the admin and for the URL where you want your just regular web app stuff to go, like build some sort of hook system and you have to like store all of your routes in a database. You don't have any like hard coded routing in the application like you're used to.
Right.
But Wagtail doesn't do that to you.
Yeah.
Wagtail says, by all means, do all of your static routing or dynamic routing, but not like database dynamic routing
Yeah.
in Django the way you normally would, and then everything else gets caught and routed through the dynamic routing system for the CMS.
And thus, it still feels like Django. You know,
Totally.
It's not really much of a paradigm shift to get started with it.
I've done it both ways. I've taken a Django project and app that's running and bolted a blog onto it with Wagtail, no problem whatsoever. I've also taken a CMS and something that was totally dynamic or just a blog, built that in Wagtail, and then got to a point in building the CMS where I was like, I really need to go custom here. This isn't something that needs to be stored in the database. I need to build some custom, logic to solve this marketing problem,
Right.
and just bolted that right onto the side of the CMS. And it's like it's not a plugin system. It's not like
Yeah.
I have to go package that shit up in some weird way and work with the 5 hooks that have been presented to me. It's just get in there and write code and deploy it. It's awesome.
Yeah, because I mean, not everything needs to be editable.
Right.
And yeah.
Some things, by contrast, absolutely shouldn't be.
This is true.
Like, don't touch. You will break this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that in the WordPress world of like, I updated a plugin and our company doesn't make money anymore.
Yeah. WordPress.
It's ugly.
It's a blog. It's a blog thing.
So Wagtail, not a CMS, but a CMS framework. It doesn't ship with any content types predefined.
It's not like Mezzanine.
Yeah, you don't like install it and then just start blogging and creating pages and stuff like that.
Right,
Like you can do absolutely nothing with it when you install it. The first thing you have to do is go create some data models that say this is my page and these are the fields that are on it. But it's really like quick to get it into a place where you can build dynamic content.
Yeah, totally. I've got one that I'm kind of working on the side that I've taken some templates and just kind of trying to take it as far as I can and those fields you were talking about I think will really help me be able to make everything in the template customizable even if I don't know HTML.
Yeah, totally. Stream fields are sweet. No one else that I know of is doing anything like that in other CMSs. Although, admittedly, I don't spend a lot of time looking at the CMS world these days.
Yeah.
I avoid WordPress. I'm sure WordPress is attempting to innovate in some ways, but I don't know if they're innovating in that way. It's pretty cool. Everyone uses like all kinds of plugins for WordPress to do page building, and they're gnarly.
We've seen some gnarly stuff.
Yeah. You had something else that you had shared with me before we came in here, Alan.
I did.
You had gone out there. You'd gone out there on the internet, and you went and you read an article.
I did.
And then you had thoughts about it.
I did. So this is an article on CSS tricks, the Great Divide. 2 front-end developers are sitting at a bar. They have nothing to talk about. Talking about the state of front-end development.
That's a really good way to phrase it.
I like it.
Nothing to talk about.
Nothing to talk about. They both use completely different tool sets, even though they both work on the front end. So that's kind of the state of front-end development these days.
That was not the case
5-10 years ago.
I mean, even shorter than that, probably.
Yeah,
right?
probably.
I don't know. I'm getting old, and the years are blending it. Maybe it has been 5 years. How long have we had like CoffeeScript and TypeScript and things like that?
Has that been 10 years?
It probably has. I don't know how long it's been since it was like widely adopted.
Yeah.
All I know is, that's the thing now is people are like, oh, you do front end dev? Yeah. Me too. Cool.
There you go. Yeah.
Do you use Wait, what do you use? Like, TypeScript. It's like, I don't know anything about
Yeah,
that.
I just use JavaScript, or I use CoffeeScript.
I use CoffeeScript. I'm on ES5.
Yeah.
I'm on ES 2019 revision 7 alpha.
I'm using React. Oh, I like Vue. I like Angular.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
Ember
and
too.
yeah, what does front end even mean, right? Because at least for a time, mobile development was a something completely different from front end, and now obviously people are still building native mobile apps in their native tooling for a lot of things, but so much of it is being done with React Native and things like it, Ionic and Cordova, which have been around for even longer. But like, if you just need to build a list view, if you're just building cards and storing data, which most even in the web app side, not even talking about mobile,
Right.
like, most shit is just CRUD.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
like, I need to type shit in.
Yep.
And then I need to go home. And when I come back tomorrow, I need to go read the shit that I typed in yesterday.
Yep.
That's most software.
And I might need to update it.
Yeah.
Or delete it. And
And don't let them see my shit.
Yep. Yeah,
But specifically that person can, like,
Yeah.
like access control. And that's most of software.
It is.
And most of that, you can do that in JavaScript and deploy it to mobile. So
Right.
I don't know what the actual stats on that are, but how many apps in the app stores are actually written in like the native languages.
I wonder how you could even tell, because somewhere under the hood, right, it's transpiling and compiling that to a bytecode somewhere.
Yeah, I don't even know if the app stores themselves can get that information.
Right.
But the best maybe surveying developers and finding out. But
Yeah.
It's really crazy how much that's changed.
It is.
Here we go again.
Yeah.
It used to be different.
It did.
But like you could, saying, hey, I'm a back-end developer that does Python, still today means largely what it meant then.
Right.
It might mean that you dabble a little bit more in data science or something like that.
Yeah.
But like, you'd be like, oh, you do web stuff? Cool. So you're either using, Django or Flask or Pyramid if you're Tosh and his company down there.
Yeah.
But that's kind of about it. Plone and a few others.
And
but
Bottle way back probably.
So there's a few, but there's like clear front runners of like Django and Flask and Django, and there's an order of magnitude like between those two things. Whereas in JavaScript, like it's so fragmented that it's super likely that you can work in the same field in the same industry building the same fucking application, like identical applications. You can have the front end for, I don't know if they are, but the front end for PagerDuty and the front end for OpsBeat, the same app, could very well, like two front end engineers from those teams could sit down and look at each other like they were
worked on totally different things.
Yeah, like you were an unknown species,
Yeah.
What even is all that?
And back to like Django and Flask, for instance, even there, I remember, there's a clear distinction. Why do you use Flask? Like, oh, well, we use Flask because it's, we're just kind of doing microservices maybe or something.
Because I enjoy the pain of SQL alchemy.
we don't have we don't need everything that Django is offering maybe or something like, but there's kind of a logical reason behind it that even, why am I using Vue over React?
Far more based on preferences.
Yeah, exactly.
Than
just
use
totally
cases.
opinion.
Yeah.
I like this one better than that, and I've seen that especially between like React and Vue. I think one of the reasons I always tell everyone I like Vue is because it reminds me of Angular 1 in a lot of ways, and that's the first JavaScript framework that I actually did stuff with. Like that's the first one I was interacting with an API, and before I even really knew what an API was, I didn't know anything about REST.
Yeah,
it was just okay, yeah. So I mean that makes sense. So I hit this URL, and instead of getting the whole page, I just get the data I need,
right?
And then I will inflate the page with JavaScript like that, and it felt. It wasn't a total paradigm shift because you just have those ng tags that you throw in your HTML, and then I remember React coming on the scene, and that just
JSX,
what?
like being like, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Well, it was crazy.
It was,
It
yeah.
was even for someone that
now I put the DOM in my JavaScript.
yeah, and the whole concept of creating your own tags and things like that was very bizarre as it came on. But I can't speak on behalf of well, anyone obviously, but certainly even more broadly or more narrowly front end developers, because I'm not hugely into front end work.
Yeah.
But a lot of the Angular developers that I've talked to anecdotally or at the very least nostalgic for Angular 1, if not like outright, that was when it was at its best, and then it just got worse from there.
Yeah.
Like changed the paradigm, which is why a lot of people like Vue.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember the outrage at the time of like, Google's going to release a whole new Angular that's going to be completely different from the first one. So forget everything that you know and get ready to learn a totally new framework.
And then it became Ember, or moved in that direction. A lot of people said. I don't know if that was Angular 2 or Angular 4. And there wasn't an Angular 3. We just we dropped that. It's like Angular 3 is PHP 6. We just said, fuck it, we'll start over.
Yeah. This one's nothing like any of the others. So. Yeah, and
you see, you guys out there in PHP and Angular land, you're doing it all wrong. You're supposed to do it the way Python did it, where you don't skip the version, you just launch it, and no one uses it for 10 years. you just go, here's Python 3, but you probably shouldn't use it for a decade.
Yeah,
that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I know. We're just now getting around to
Python 3.6 should have been Python 4 by that measure.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Or maybe 3.4, I don't know.
And we're just now, I forget what it's 2.7 something, and that's the last Python 2, like
2.7.12 or 2.7.13. It's getting up there.
Yeah, but they're done. Like,
even security updates?
They may still do that,
may have
but they're not actively developing it, which makes sense.
I think 2020 is the official, even LTS ends on it or something like that.
Yeah,
I have all of the world's information at my fingertips.
We don't have to speculate.
Yeah. What is the Python 2 end of life? Come on, Google. Ooh, there's a countdown clock. Oh, I was right. 2020. January 1st, 2020. Python 2.7 retires in
that's coming up.
Less than a year, that's pretty.
You say
sweet.
2020, and I think like, that would be plenty of time, but nope, that's next year.
I got the counter in front of me. The years are at 0, which is cool. 9 months, 9 days, 6 hours, and 2 minutes until Python 2 goes away. It's good to remind myself of that, because I was, along with a lot of people, pretty late adopter on Python 3. Because you had to be, because like none of the dependencies supported Python 3, and we weren't going to do what the front end developers were doing, which was just like, we'll just add 20 more dependencies that try and transpile everything to some common language.
Thank God we didn't.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad it went that way. But late adoption into it, we didn't even like really exclusively start rolling out Python 3 apps here at Lofty until 2017, maybe 2018. Maybe it was last year when we really we were probably still supporting at least one Python 2 app until last year.
Right when I came on, we were we migrated one
because finally you had support for all the libraries that you needed to do it. So it's kind of crazy that it took that long. But the thing that's I still forget. I still forget that it's being deprecated because I used it for so long, and I'm not necessarily that concerned about an app that's written in Python 2 until I see that timer, and then I go, "Ooh, that's actually a big deal." Because I was looking at something yesterday. It was that dashboarding framework, part of this whole thing I've been working on.
Right.
I was like, I'm not paying $150 a month for Gecko board. That's insanity. I don't want a dashboard bill. Yeah. That's not for the data. It's just for the fucking divs. You know, like I'm not paying a bill for divs.
Right. Right.
And so I was like, all right, let's look at some open source dashboarding frameworks. And I found actually a really cool one for Python. I'm gonna have to look in my history to figure out what it was.
But it was in Python too, huh?
Yeah, I think it's called Tipboard. Tipboard. Let me look it up. Where is Tipboard?
Tipboard.
Yeah. It was open source by Allegro, Tipboard, and it's pretty cool. It's all push based, so it's written in Tornado. It uses Redis PubSub as a backend for it, and it has an API. And you define your dashboard, and you just post to the API, and so you can build. I've got these Chalice services and stuff like that. I mean, it'd be an actual real-time dashboard, not something that you're polling on a 5-minute interval or something like that, like you get with Geckoboard. So I was like all about it. But it's an old project. I saw it had commits within 9 months. I was like, that's sweet, but it's still on Python 2.
Yeah.
And I was like, I will take up this noble cause. And so I forked it, and I installed it under Python 3 and ran the 2 to 3 and did all the basic stuff, and then found out how many dependencies on this project had Python 2 dependencies. But they were pinned, so I started upgrading dependencies and stuff like that. And then found out that the underlying Redis low-level client library that they were using doesn't have Python 3 support, and then they released a version of it that did, but it doesn't have Tornado support. Tornado was 3 major versions behind, and it was just this whole mess. And then the very next thing I went through, facing this impossible task of basically just rewriting this app from scratch, I looked at it and said, well, maybe we could run dashboards in Python 2. And then I saw that countdown, and my resolve was strengthened. No way.
Yeah.
That is coming to an end in January. So, damn it, now I have to rewrite Tipboard. Someone do it for me, please, please, please. It's really, I basically, I'm going to have to build something from scratch, but inspired by this concept of a event-driven dashboarding system.
Yeah, I still think something with maybe Rethink DB or something would be kind of cool, like what we did with Gulliver.
Yeah.
But, less specialized.
An app that we built for a local startup crawl event in which we had people using SMS codes to check into locations, and we had a real-time map at each of the locations where you could see people
where they checked in.
See where people were checking in, and it was really cool. And Rethink DB was neat there.
Yeah, it's it's basically a document store, but
with a PubSub model on top.
Yeah, exactly. WebSocket's built right in, so
you can open a WebSocket to the database and subscribe
on the front end.
You subscribe to the table.
Yep.
And if something's written to the table or a row's altered, you get an event with the delta on it.
Yep, that updates it. And then we had a back end that pushed proxied those changes to it. Like that. So yeah, it's really
totally. I mean, you couldn't get more real time.
Yeah, exactly.
And it wasn't like what you typically have to do with real time systems, which is write something to your persistent storage, your database, and then at the same time also fire off some event that is the event that something has just happened and here's what's up there. You just wrote to the database, and by writing to the database, all you concerned yourself with was writing consistent and persistent data, and your app automatically got PubSub notifications from it.
Yeah, so you're still thinking in CRUD,
Yep.
just I need to push this to the database, and then it'll handle it.
I say persistent, but it's one of those, I didn't. It was a toy app. It only needed to work for 4 hours.
Yeah,
it was for one night only kind of deal.
If I was storing the data, I'd still probably kind of do what we like to do with Elasticsearch and
have a persistent storage in a SQL database.
And so push to Postgres, but then push to Rethink DB, and have that kind of be to the front end.
Yeah, because I didn't do a lot of due diligence on it because we didn't need to for the nature of that app. But I don't know how bulletproof the persistent storage is, and I don't know how consistent and how safe it is to write to it.
I know. I'll say this about it. So I locally was running it in Docker, as I do everything these days. And
you must have infinite hard drives.
I do a lot of pruning.
Yeah.
And so I deleted that Docker Compose file, and I didn't think about it, but I had that guy restart always. And so I had deleted the file, and I didn't think about it. I shut it down. I'm like, cool, whatever. And then I would fire it up, and then I'd do Docker PS, and I look, and I'm like, Rethink DB, what's that still doing here?
Yeah.
And no, I couldn't quickly just track it down. And
was all the data still there?
Yeah.
All those times,
Yeah, it was like a zombie. So I eventually had to stand up another. I did wrote another Docker Compose file so I could change the restart policy on it basically to never, and then I could shut it down. I mean, it was pretty bulletproof, but that's local too.
Right.
I mean,
it always just kind of scares me because I see something that's a document store that's made for clustering and also like extremely fast like pub/sub stuff, and I'm like, what corners did you cut? What critical parts of the CAP theorem did you ignore? To make it work this way? Like which traits of MongoDB do you share?
That's a big
part
of it.
Those kind of things always make me nervous.
Yeah, because I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that a bunch of problems that they solved a long time ago. Making databases, relational databases, anyway, making them ACID compliant and all that. And those are guys that were a lot smarter than me that did that, and they didn't have Google or anything. They didn't have Stack Overflow to figure this stuff out either.
Yeah, and well, we have the math, right? The CAP theorem. It's not necessarily bulletproof, but it kind of tells you what trade-offs you have to make, and the P in CAP theorem is persistence, right? And a lot of people really sacrifice the persistent side of the CAP theorem to maximize, the capacity and
performance. They replace the P.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it's persistence. It could be performance. I'm gonna have to look up the CAP theorem again, but I think it's persistence. And so basically, it's like it's one of the classic triangles. It's like the project management triangle, right? Fast, high quality, and cheap, and you can pick two, right? You can have fast and high quality, but it's not going to be cheap. You can have fast and cheap, but it's not going to be high quality. And you can have cheap and high quality, but it's going to take some time, right?
Yeah.
But like choose two of them, and the CAP theorem is kind of the same way. And so if you're maximizing for something that isn't persistence, your persistence is risked,
compromised.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this article, it's interesting that as you're scrolling along, it's got a lot of quotes and things. But the big idea is the great divide, and just how even in front end development now there's major divides that I guess used to you could really think of as being a back end sort of problem. Like,
right.
Well, I use Rails. I use Spring, or I use Django or Python, but now that has made its way to the front end as well, because JavaScript is everywhere.
Yeah. Yep. It's pretty crazy how that is, and like we complain about it a lot on this show, being back end folks predominantly, and I don't want to beat that horse too much, especially because Blake's not here to catch the brunt of my wrath over it. But man, we saw something the other day. I called Alan into my office. Like, you got to see this. We were looking at. I looked up that. I started actually using that Nightmare.js thing that Blake had recommended to do some scraping, some web scraping because the web doesn't work anymore. And you can't just speak HTTP at servers and get data. Often you need to render and run JavaScript and
store cookies.
And get bypass all kinds of like CAPTCHA and like DDoS protection. All of it kind of depends on you running a browser these days. And so I was getting nowhere with curl. And curl derivatives, and so I spun up Nightmare, and it's actually pretty cool. But in looking at it, a lot of people use it to run front end tests, like you might use Selenium,
right?
And it is lighter weight and easier to use Selenium. But in the process, I caught my first glimpse of some Mocha tests. I had never looked at. I had never actually seen written out Mocha tests before, and I was just looking at it and shaking my head, like, what have you done? Because it's this like API that serves no practical development purpose. It's like properties and methods layered on top of each other so that you can write out a test in code that reads in like a clever kind of way. Is that a good description of it?
I think so, because it's hard to describe, but
Without me just I can pull up an example for the people watching on the live stream, but
otherwise we're reading code
outside
online,
of dictating code to the podcasters. You just have to go look up the syntax of a Mocha test.
I guess it's so foreign to us because we primarily use unit tests, the library built into Python, and Django has bolted on.
And those things are inspired by JUnit and other stuff. Like they didn't invent the wheel.
Yeah, which because I had to look that up a while back. I was like, wait, set up, tear down. Why is that camel case?
Mm-hmm.
What is happening to my Python? And looked that up and found that out, that they literally just wanted to keep it as close as they could. And so I guess they did a pretty good job. But yeah, so with Mocha, it's like you have this if function.
You have an if function. You have I found an example. Okay. I found an example for the people watching. But this is in the Nightmare.js documentation, which is where I saw it for the first time. And it's down here in this promise callback. There's a Mocha test, which is it's a function called expect, and you pass an object to it. Expect link dot to dot equal, which is the function that you pass the equality check to it. And I look at that code and I go, dot to means nothing. Yeah. That's just an object that's stuck in the middle there so that you can write the word to, and expect means nothing. It just takes a thing. Like, what happened to link double equal or triple equal? We're in JavaScript, right? But what happened to, we have an equality operator. Why does this involve, Why does this involve two function calls and a needless property in the middle to check equality between two things? And I know that it's making an assertion. And in Python, we can say assert thing equals other thing, right? Right. But like it's a complicated programmatic API purely for the purpose of it reading cool, or maybe not cool, but like English-like, which is something that Python gets a lot of flack for because it's not engineered to do it that way. It's because you literally use the word and you literally use the word or. We don't have a double ampersand operator in Python, but it kind of reads like prose. Mm-hmm. But this is like taking a C-style syntax language and then engineering the structure of your library and how its classes are, not for performance and not for sanity and organization, but to make it look like a prose-like language. And it's just like, why are you doing this? I don't get it.
Yeah,
it's gross. It scares me.
I like to think Blake's laughing at us.
He probably is. He's like, these old men are just complaining, just dinosaurs about it. But like, I don't know. When I was a kid, when I was a lad, we used to write code for the purpose of solving problems.
This one. So I'm on the Mocha site looking at examples, and I found one. Return db.find type user should dot eventually dot have dot length 3.
Jesus Christ. That is, yeah. And so what exactly does the should function return?
Yeah, what's that method doing?
I haven't actually looked at the internals of like the Mocha library, but I imagine it being like the way it works, almost like it'd be so convoluted that like it's all the derivative classes are like, this is a verb infinitive and this is, because it's like it's written like human language as opposed to programmatic language.
Yeah, I'm curious what should has in there, right? Because the way JavaScript is, it would just pass it.
It's chaining.
Yeah,
it's chaining a bunch of method calls.
To do nothing.
It's probably returning itself, right? It's probably an object that is mutating itself and returning itself, and it's using method chaining to do it. But then I saw there's the one the first example that I showed that had that to, which wasn't a method, so it was expect dot to dot blah blah blah. And so I don't know what to is, but it's probably just a container object that has, equal underneath it and other things. Expect something to be greater than or something like that. There's probably a .to .b greater than, because you can't just have expect greater than. That doesn't look cool at all.
Yeah.
Am I bitching enough about JavaScript yet? I said I wasn't going to do it.
Yeah, it's hard not to do.
Yeah, we miss you, Blake.
Yeah.
You're not here to defend it, and so I'm going to call upon Blake to defend Mocha tests when he comes back.
Yeah.
Remind me, Alan.
Okay. Yeah, I'll probably remember it. Yeah, that's well, and that could be a topic sometime. We talk about
Blake defends Mocha tests.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah.
I would, that is a good topic. I'm calling it
like
now.
Unit
testing in JavaScript versus unit testing in Python. I would enjoy that.
Yeah, I would too.
Because I've often wondered, or just testing in general.
Yeah, I was going to say even integration testing,
Functional
right?
testing.
Yeah.
Nightmare versus Selenium, so on and so forth. Because I'll tell you right now, having not done much functional testing in JavaScript, but mess with Nightmare a little bit, and having used Selenium a lot in the past, like, clear advantage towards Nightmare. Selenium kind of sucks. WebDriver sucks by comparison.
Yeah. That's that is the attractive thing that I could see about Nightmare.js for sure.
Yeah.
I don't have to download Chrome.
But come on, if you guys want your test suite to read like pros, just come write Python code, and you get some of that.
Yeah, that's where we get gnarly with our method naming.
Not as bad as that's what Ruby does as well. I don't know if you recall from talking with Alex when he came to talk about Ruby, but the whole variables can end with question marks and stuff like that. So you can, you guys, just write the code.
I like to pick on other languages but it's fascinating though, really, to me, that the decisions you see the decisions that people made along the way. This will be like this because
and I think that this maybe is what brings it full circle for the Great Divide, the article that you had mentioned of two front-end developers sit down and have nothing to talk about, and it's things like this, which that syntax and how that library structure has absolutely nothing to do with the language and absolutely nothing to do with the work. Right. It's just every library is so massively esoteric to the way that library does things.
Right. Like comparing React and Ember.
Yeah.
Right. What do you have in common if you're an expert in either one of those?
Solving the same problems, right? Ultimately, the output's the same.
Yeah.
It's generating markup and CSS, but
you're still doing UX work, but one has handlebar templates and the other one has a virtual DOM.
Yeah, it's really kind of crazy, but I don't know. I don't claim to get it, and I'm not saying it's wrong.
No,
I mean we're building cool software. Don't get me wrong, but it is kind of it's kind of crazy the idea that things can be so different from one developer to the next, one project to the next, one company to the next. I think that you could probably be a senior engineer at company A and go to company B and be as productive as an entry level developer over there if you weren't familiar in front end with all the tooling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you had to write Mocha tests, obviously you can learn libraries and stuff like that, but the thing is going from one project to the other, it's not I've got to go learn a new library because I changed positions. It's I got to go relearn how to build front end.
Yeah.
I got to go relearn 45 different dependent libraries to build systems over here. And so, common tooling is important. I preach it a lot over here at Lofty. Common tooling, especially in project work like we do, it's what makes it so that if someone gets sick or takes a vacation, someone else can step in and work on it. It makes it so that when you get stuck on something, you can turn around to your teammates and everyone else has some baseline of shared knowledge on it.
Yeah, you can scale horizontally.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm sure front-end teams within organizations have their common tooling, but in our world, on the Python side, common tooling is portable from this Python shop to the next Python shop. But I think that's what that article is getting at, is common tooling is not portable from even one project to the next within the same company.
Yeah.
On the front end side.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting there, there's kind of a trend of companies that are just hiring JavaScript developers that, because even these days, knowing JavaScript doesn't mean you're a front-end developer.
Sure.
Even at all.
Sure. That's something else I didn't even talk about, right? Is the idea that there is such a thing as people who write nothing but JavaScript all day, every day, and they're also back-end developers.
Yeah.
I write Express apps. I write a lot of Mocha tests. But that's totally the reality. That's another kind of aspect to it. So saying I'm a JavaScript developer doesn't mean much. It means something, but it's not very specific. It's quite a broad thing.
Yeah, compared to I guess 10 years ago, I don't even think you could have said I'm a JavaScript developer.
It was just like, yeah, we all are.
Yeah,
I'm also an HTML developer and a jQuery developer.
I was going to say
that's the only. That's how the web works.
Yeah.
But no, not anymore.
Yeah, that and I will bring up so they have a comparison here with maybe a front end developer years ago and then like today, and on this side of today, React, Next.js, Apollo, GraphQL, and on this side, interaction design, SVG, CSS, Sass, WordPress themes, light jQuery.
Yeah,
I know a little jQuery.
Yeah.
And then back to now, Webpack, JS architecture. And Webpack, man, that
goes deep.
Yeah, it does.
Deep. Blake's got a great talk. I'm sure it's out there somewhere in YouTube's deep in the archive or something that's online. I'll have to ask him for it. But great talk on how Webpack works. We kind of take it for granted because it's used so much, but it makes a lot of sense. But it's also kind of surprising how it works. I won't give any spoilers, but it turns out it's written in JavaScript. And it does some. It's not that bad. It's not that bad, but it does some. I guess I imagined it being a little more sophisticated. I mean, it's just slamming. It's just concatenating bytes. It's just catting stuff together, right? I don't know what I expected it to do, but it does that, and apparently it does some tree shaking in there.
Yeah, that's we learned that word this year.
Well, cool, man. I think we held it down decently for no Blake. We beat mercilessly on JavaScript without him here to defend it, and that's what happens when you're not here, Blake.
Yeah. That's what happens when you leave us to talk.
Well, I'm going to go outside and absorb some of this newfound sunshine thanks to government meddling with time zones. So
I think spring's here.
All right. We'll see you guys in a week. Oh, our live stream is just downright terrible.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Hardly bring myself to look at it. You can't even read the words.
That's rough.
Isn't that rough?
Yeah, no, that is.
I wonder what the audio quality is like. That is gnarly.
I feel like I'm watching YouTube videos
and
downloading stuff with BearShare.
No one commented on it because it was just so bad.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, well.
For the few of you watching on the live stream, we are out of here. We'll see you in a little while.